was a week when some came home, while others came back. Stay tuned as we cover all the action and take a look ahead at this Sunday's matchups in the NFL.
I'm Chris Collinsworth, and in this week's cover story, we'll take a look at one of the most successful sports attorneys in the country, Agent Lee Steinberg.
I was the NFL Rookie of the Year in 1967. Stay tuned later in the show to see where I am now.
After 2 weeks, the Cleveland Browns have the most aggressive defense in the NFL. The man responsible? Their new head coach, Bud Carson, who joins us on NFL Crosstalk. This is HBO's Inside the NFL, professional football's most informative hour, with your hosts, Len Dawson and Nick Bonacani.
Nick, great week of football, and that Philadelphia-Washington game was as good a football game as I had seen in years. It had everything.
Yeah, everything but defense, Lenny. When's the last time you saw a Redskin defense give up 42 points?
Well, that's spoken by a defensive player. It also had the most talked about play of this young 2-week season. We're going to be showing our viewers that play, going into more detail a little later on in the show. But I mentioned just 2 weeks this young season, but it does not take Nick Bonacani long to formulate opinions. I know you have them. How about sharing them with us?
Lenny, what strikes me is there are 3 teams that were virtually in a trash heap last year have shown marked improvement in the first 2 weeks of the '89 season. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, surprising defense, should have beat the 49ers and Joe Montana. And how about the Atlanta Falcons? Chris Miller, 2 good games in a row at quarterback. And the Green Bay Packers, what an incredible comeback.
Boy, I agree, particularly that incredible comeback by the Green Bay Packers. I noticed you mentioned Chris Miller, the quarterback of Atlanta, but you failed to mention Don Majkowski, the quarterback of the Packers. I can understand that. The fans were all over his case. In the first game against Tampa Bay, he threw 3 interceptions. They lost that one. The first half against New Orleans, they're down 21-0. His stats read 5 for 10, 88 yards, 1 interception. But as he was going into the locker room, the fans were booing him. But something happened to this young man at halftime.
I know what happened. Their head coach, Lindy Infante, he must have read him the right act. He woke up Majkowski out of a coma. Well, I have to ask you a question. Have you ever been in a situation like Majkowski where in the first half you can't even hit the ground with the ball, then you come out the second half and you complete 18 passes in a row for a club record?
In 19 years, I have never been involved in a game like that. I don't know if our viewers understand how difficult it is to complete 18 passes in a row when you start out red hot, let alone doing it after a very cold first half. That was unbelievable. Don Majkowski engineered one of the greatest comebacks in the history of the Green Bay Packers. But as you will see in our first segment, that's just one of 3 exciting come-from-behind victories registered when teams just kept changing that scoreboard.
After bursting ahead of Dallas and breezing to an opening day blowout, the Saints turned their sights to Green Bay, where at first, local hospitality seemed as good as New Orleans' own home cooking. For the second straight week, the Saints jumped out to a 21-0 lead. But momentum can be deceiving, and the Packers had a trick or two themselves. Here, the combined effect of 2 pulling linemen and a good play fake drew the entire Saints defense to the strong side of the field, and Ed West sneaked off to the weak side for the score. Before the Saints could get turned around, quarterback Don Majkowski had completed 18 consecutive passes, setting a Packer record and pulling the Pack to within 6 points. He then marched Green Bay 80 yards in less than a minute and completed the comeback.
Here is Majkowski back to throw. Majkowski looking, breaking down, comes over the middle, touchdown to Sterling Sharp over the middle. And the Packers have taken a lead with 1:26 to go.
For a novice, Majkowski handled his comeback with great aplomb. But for true style and last-minute victories, no man can match Joe Montana. Daunted by no deficit, Montana laughs in the face of defeat. And last Sunday in Tampa, a laugher was just what the 49ers expected. Soon, however, the defending champs came crashing down to the reality of a Buccaneer team that wouldn't buckle under.
And Vinny wants to go airborne. Into the pocket, throws it downfield, intended for, batted away, hit, caught, football by Mark Carrier.
Despite the officials' stubborn refusal to believe it, late in the fourth quarter, fate was pointing the Bucs' way.
The play by Carrier, only seconds to go. You get a feeling that someone wants the Bucs to win this game.
Testaverde with a one pump, goes toward the far corner.
He's open! Touchdown!
Touchdown, Tampa Bay!
With a 16-13 lead, the Bucs had one final chance to put the Niners away, and literally had the game in their hands. Cornerback Ricky Reynolds must have felt alone in the world. But as another of Montana's victims, he has plenty of company.
Montana, bootlegs, rolls toward his right. He's going to pump and take it in himself. Touchdown, 49ers with 40 seconds to go. Joe Montana does it again.
Montana's football's answer to divine intervention. In Philadelphia, the Eagles think they've found the answer to their prayers, too. His name is Randall Cunningham. But 2 minutes into last Sunday's game in Washington, even he must have wished the Eagles had gone to church instead.
From the 20, play action fake, little hitch, going up the sideline, got Gary Clark, he pulls it in at the 50, 40, 30, he's gone! Touchdown, Washington Redskins on play number 1 from scrimmage.
Can't get any better than that. Perfect play. Holy cow, what an opener.
Biner in motion. Here they hand off. Big hole up the middle. There goes Riggs across the 40, 35, breaks it. 30, 25, near side 20. The 10, the 5. Touchdown, Washington Redskins.
2 plays, 2 touchdowns.
Wow. This place is going crazy.
They should.
Washington led 20-0 in the first quarter, but Cunningham's confidence never wavered. Mike Quick's circus catch set the tone for an unlikely Eagle comeback.
You get the feeling, Stan, this may be a strange afternoon. Cunningham is back. He's loading up. He's being chased. He starts to roll. He puts it in the air. Complete for a touchdown to Keith Jackson. And there is Mike.
The Redskins were unraveling. Here, guard Russ Grimm picks up a safety blitz, but leaves Jerome Brown a free path to the passer.
Rippon is back, being hit. From fumbles, the football is loose. The Eagles are after it. Ray Waters picks it up, stays on his feet, and is tackled at the Redskins' 42-yard line. What a play there.
And I think the Redskins got to be thinking, uh-oh, we're in a shootout now.
In the fourth quarter, the Eagles closed the gap to 30-28.
Cunningham back. He's looking. He floats it into the end zone. Touchdown! Chris Carter! Jubilant as he catches the ball from Cunningham.
Well, you got a game now, let me tell you.
Finally, the Redskins readjusted. They anticipated the safety blitz and isolated Art Monk one-on-one with cornerback Eric Everett for a touchdown and a 37-28 lead. But that was the final moment of reason before a frantic sequence of plays that defied logic, gravity, and especially belief.
And the Eagles need 2 scores in the last 3 minutes and 6 seconds. Cunningham floating it for the end zone, leaping and coming down with the football and in for a touchdown. And they say it was Quick. Quick and Carter.
It's 37-35. The Redskins are leading with 1:48, and then they're going to run out the clock.
Here comes Riggs, turns the corner, 25, 30, he's gone unless they catch him, 50, 40, he's down to the 30, the 25, he's knocked out of bounds, wrap up the ball game.
Been a lot of surprises today. Single setback is Riggs, who takes the handoff, comes along the line of scrimmage. The football is loose, and the Eagles are on it. It's recovered, and coming up with the football is Al Harris. Al Harris, and now there's Hopkins is coming down the sideline. Hopkins with the football. sideline. He cuts back at the 15, at the 10. He's at the 5. With 57 seconds to go. And this could be another miracle of the Meadowlands. Let's see. As Cunningham. Play action. Is rolling. Firing. Touchdown! Keith Jackson! Keith Jackson! Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Can you imagine being a Redskins fan today? Can you imagine being up 20-0 in this game?
Can you imagine being an Eagles fan?
This has been unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I have never seen anything like this.
Boy, what a comeback. Randall Cunningham, you are a superstar, the most electric player in the National Football League. He's putting the Eagles' names in lights. Tell you what, Lenny, he put the Redskins' lights out. They lost 2 games, both in their division.
Randall Cunningham, Superman. He's the new one, and he is performing superly, but he would have never had the opportunity to pull that game out if Mr. Riggs had not fumbled late in the ball game to give him that opportunity. That play has been talked about all week long. I think it's time now to put to rest the fact that the officials, yes, indeed, made the correct call. Here it is in slow motion.
Lenny, look at this. Riggs does not protect the football. Here it is. It comes out. It's laying there. Al Harris said, hey, a gift from heaven. I'm going to go jump on that baby, and he does.
Warren, number 85. If he had just reached over and touched him there, he couldn't have gotten up and run.
Wes Hopkins, his teammate, comes over, and he's going to strip his own teammate Al Harris of the football. Now, that's a strip, and that's not a lateral. So, therefore, the official's call was the right one, and Hopkins goes up the sideline and makes as many yards as he can.
And bad luck for Washington.
Hey, listen, that play is over. But the thing is whether or not Gibbs should have had Riggs carrying the football, or should have Mark Rippon just fell on it and run the clock out?
No, Riggs is a man. After all, he had a super day, 221 yards rushing with the football. The problem was, as you said, he did not protect the football. I know this. A quarterback in a situation like that, the last thing he says when everybody leaves the huddle, he speaks to that running back and he says, protect the football. Don't worry about getting that extra yard. Unfortunately, Riggs is going to be known for that fumble instead of the great afternoon that he had. But these teams are not through. They're going to meet Week 10 in Philadelphia. That should be some kind of reunion. Well, there were reunions every week in the National Football League. As a matter of fact, we'd like to show you 3 of them that occurred this past weekend.
Once the magic has gone out of a relationship, it's time to hit the highway. But sooner or later, every prodigal son comes home. Only no matter how humbly one returns, not everyone is so forgiving.
Chandler long count, turns, gives to Dickerson, hit behind the line and stopped for a loss of 3. It was Doug Reed who won the pool. Who's going to get him first?
The Rams corralled the stallion, but let a foal run free.
Sets up, has time. He's going to air it out. Intended for Clarence Verdun around midfield. Clarence is there. He's got it. He's going to score. He's going 82 yards, and the Colts are right back in it.
Time changes everything, and these days Los Angeles rushes for a chance to pass. Together, Jim Everett and Henry Ellard let a former Ram know just how much he's missed. While not many in L.A. may hold Dickerson in high esteem, Atlanta still has fond memories of former Georgia Bulldog Herschel Walker, although the Falcons paid him little respect.
Start for Herschel, flag down. He tries to reverse. He fumbled the ball. It's rolling around. A Falcon picks it up. Watch a penalty. We got a man going in to score. Bobby Butler's going in to score. I know that's a fluke, but we got it.
Focusing too much on the running back made Atlanta forget who was playing quarterback.
Rafferty back to Aikman on the shotgun. Rafferty fires down the middle, and it is complete on our 45. And there goes Michael Irvin, and he's going to score.
baseman may earn more money, but Chris Miller made the Cowboys pay as he rallied the Falcons to a stirring win.
We're still 1 point down. Toss sweep. Settle, cutting, settle, touchdown. The stadium is rocking.
Very few places rock like the Dog Pound, and Bud Carson's home opener as Browns head coach was his second reunion in a row. After defeating former boss Chuck Noll in Week 1, Carson squared off with his most recent boss on Sunday, good buddy Joe Walton.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
They interpret a lot of things.
Those things are all, you're learning what they're like. Okay. Good luck, Bud.
A week before, the Browns' defense looked invincible, but it did not take Walton long to find a chink in their armor.
To Vick on a drop play, big gaping hole up the middle. He's going to go all the way for a touchdown. Roger Vick on a gaping hole up the middle, and the Jets draw first blood today.
The Jets' euphoria was dampened, though, by the nifty feat of Webster Slaughter and a rather hasty decision by New York's corner.
Slaughter wide open, got the ball at the 10. 5, touchdown!
Slaughter's touchdown had the Dog Pound smelling a second straight route, but they were led off the trail by some blown coverages of their own.
O'Brien wants to throw on first down, looping it left side. Pass is caught by JoJo Townsell. He's going to go in for a touchdown. Townsell was wide open.
This gift, however, would be the last breakdown of Cleveland's aggressive defense.
You got to keep pushing. Beat one man, beat the second, beat the third. Keep pushing, move. If we get a chance, cha-cha's up. Okay, if we get 57, we want to run the cha-cha. We got to get him out here now. We got to win it right here. This is what we worked all winter for, is this chance right here.
Coming your way, Bubba! Here we go, Obi! Let's go, Obi!
3 sacks and 4 interceptions ended the Jets' threat, and a 24-point second-half barrage put the game away.
Is back to throw, second and goal at the 6, looking for a wide open Tim Manoa. It's a touchdown.
Hands off to Keith Jones, drives up right tackle, he's down to the 5 to 4, the goal line, touchdown. He carried four players with him.
Cleveland is 2-0 for the first time since 1979, but the Browns players realize how much this win meant to Carson.
Well, this is a really important win. I think this was a little bit special one for him than the one against the Steelers last week. And the guys wanted to come out and they wanted to play well. And most of all, we wanted to win for him, and we did.
Bud Carson is 2-0. Joe Walton is 0-2. Jets fans must be asking the question, is the wrong man coaching their team, particularly when you take a look at the play of the defensive units. Bud Carson, the architect of that famed steel curtain, dominating pro football in the 70s, winners of 4 Super Bowl championships. Last 4 years, he was a defensive coordinator of the New York Jets. Then last January, Browns owner Art Modell named him the head football coach with high recommendations from both the Steelers and the Jets organizations. Matter of fact, Jets owner Leon Hess was one man that highly recommended him. Bud Carson now joins Nick on NFL Crosstalk. Nick?
Thank you, Lenny. Bud Carson, thanks very much for being with us, taking the time Bud, you're 58 years old. You're known as a defensive genius. You, Bill Arnsparger, Joe Collier, the deans of defense in the National Football League at one time. But what took you so long to get a head coaching job in the NFL?
Oh, who knows, Nick? It's been a lot of things, I'm sure. Each year I used to try to find a reason why, but the important thing is I did get it, and I'm happy to be here, and so far I'm having a good time.
But what is the difference between being an assistant coach, now you were an assistant coach for many, many years, and a head coach?
The biggest problem, I think, I've been an assistant so long, it's hard to get out of the habits that you get in as an assistant football coach, particularly if you're a defensive coordinator. I'm trying to run what I know best, work mostly from the defensive side of the ball and let the offense do their thing. I know I wanted to be let alone do my thing when I was when I was a defensive coordinator. So really, there's not a heck of a lot of difference for me. I'm doing basically what I've done in the past, plus I'm trying to oversee the overall philosophy of the offense and the kicking game. But no one man can do it all, no matter when a head football coach either deals with the offense or he deals with the defense. There have been some people like George Allen that dealt strictly with the defense, and really that's what I'm trying to do.
Do you think Art Modell and the league got together to arrange the schedule here for 1989? Because the first two teams that you played, the Pittsburgh Steelers and New York Jets, both your old teams.
Yeah, I don't know about that, Nick. That well could be, but they were two emotional games for us. It seems like my whole coaching staff's from Pittsburgh, so that was an emotional game for us. We have a couple here from New York, so there's always something special about it. Now we got Cincinnati coming up, and where that's the interstate rivalry, plus a lot of people here that are genuinely pumped up about that because Cincinnati was in the Super Bowl last year.
When you talk about the Cleveland Browns defense, they say that the transition was from one of a react and wait to one of swarm and attack. What do they really mean by that?
We decided to take the chance and go to a four-man line, and we wanted to first be a team that could rush the passer. Our whole objective was not to be a reading team and then come third down, try to take those same people that were reading and try to turn them into pass rushers. We preferred to try to do it the other way. We'd get off quick, penetrate, be a penetrating type of defensive football team that could that if it was pass would have a jump and would be able to be a better pass rusher with that type of scheme than they would have been with the two-gap scheme. We're going to give some things up by overplaying. We're going to give some traps up. We're going to give a lot of things up. But in the long run, we think we're doing the things that will allow us to do what I think is most important, and that's rush the passer.
The Kevin Mack situation, the running back, he had some personal problems and with drugs, and he's been suspended until the fourth league game. I know the players and the team have rallied around him. What is your personal feelings about the Kevin Mack thing?
Well, Kevin Mack is first of all, is hardly anyone that doesn't love the guy. Has such a great personality. He's just an outstanding person. It's hard to believe that he's had the problems that he's had, but I'm sure he's going to come back from those problems. He's been through rehabilitation. He goes through counseling now. The guy is doing whatever he can do to get back on the right track, and I'd like to have him now here as a football player. We don't, but fortunately, this is the last game we'll have to play without him. We'll have him back the week after Cincinnati, and it's going to obviously help our football squad. Kevin Mack has got tons of talent, in my opinion. Now, for a big man, I've never seen a man his size that has the athletic ability that he has, and I'm hoping that down the stretch he's going to be a big factor.
Bud, this week you go to Cincinnati and they call it the Jungle, playing against Paul Brown's team, and we all know the rivalry between Art Modell and Paul Brown. What do you look for going into Cincinnati?
Well, I think we'll find out what kind of football team we are. We're not really sure. We know Cincinnati's a great football team. They proved it last year. They've got all their guns, all their weapons. They've got a great football coach. We're not sure exactly where we stand. We're going in there and try to find out.
Congratulations, Coach, on the first 2 weeks of the season, and best of luck for the rest of the year. And like they say, this Bud's for you. Lenny?
This Bud's for you. You're ever the marketing man, aren't you? Well, I'm sure that Bud Carson, would be the first to say that the reason the Browns are winning is not so much because of what he's doing. It's because he inherited some talented football players. And if he continues to get some talented players, he'll undoubtedly be talking to the subject of this week's NFL cover story. Lee Steinberg, known as a $1 million agent, as reported by our newest correspondent making his debut, Chris Collinsworth.
Over the past few years, unethical agents have tarnished sports due to unscrupulous dealings, player holdouts, financial improprieties, and other illegal activities.
The other way.
But out here on the West Coast, where everything seems to be just a little more laid back, there's a man who's trying to change that image. They call him the quarterback's agent with the personal touch. Sports attorney Lee Steinberg. He represents only 80 athletes, has a clientele turnover less than 5%, is one of the NFL's top agents, and this offseason signed Moon, Wilson, Eason, O'Brien, and Aikman to multi-million-dollar contracts, but curiously and routinely turns down marketable prospects.
If what attracts you in life is fancy dress and a lot of jewelry and a synthetic cosmetic lifestyle, we probably are not going to share a lot in common. But if you're real interested in building friendships and developing second career and long life plans, and if you want a partner and a counselor and a friend in those processes, then I think we'd have an exciting relationship.
Perhaps it's this approach that has led to his success and respect throughout the NFL. Lee's a down-to-earth guy who straddles his time between 3 West Coast offices. But in professional football, where careers average 3.1 years, he has negotiated unheard-of guaranteed contracts for Warren Moon and Neil Lomax with a very simple philosophy.
I think a team can take an intelligent, rational business approach that says there's a risk, and the player and the team will share that risk together. That's what happens in basketball, and that's what happens in baseball. It's only football that is on a week-to-week, non-guaranteed basis in terms of their contracts.
The 40-year-old Steinberg, who's been in this profession for 16 years now, is a powerful man who has created an art in straddling that fine line between the NFL owners and his players. But today is Sunday, and for Lee, it's time for football.
Chris, I'll tell you, all summer long, non-stop, frenetic signings. This is the fun part. This is where you get to watch the players actually go do it and talk to the families and be part of the whole atmosphere, and it's really exciting. I love it.
Lee has an open invitation to watch the game with Ram owner George Frontiere, but chooses to sit in the stands with the players' families while his clients perform. The Colts played the Rams, and the neutral Steinberg represented players on both sides of the ball. He goes to great lengths to stay in contact with all of his players and chart their weekly progress, furthering the relationship between player and agent.
My God, we read in the paper you'd be here. The key is to make your life open to being there for athletes whenever they need you. Friendship is really the ultimate value. That's the type of relationship that I have with the people I work with.
The 1989 football season is in full swing, and once again, all of Lee's players are signed and in uniform. For many agents, it would signify the end of a relationship, but for Lee Steinberg, it's only the beginning.
I don't know Lee Steinberg real well, but every once in a while I get a call from players and they ask me, who is a reputable agent and who would you recommend? Lenny, I always have Lee Steinberg on that recommended list.
He could be very selective, too. You know, of the 35 players this year that asked Lee to represent them, he selected just 7. You know, different agents have different methods in which they use to negotiate for their clients. Lee, for example, will not keep his players out of training camp while he's negotiating. Now, all agents are not that way.
Lenny, an example of that is John Offerdahl, the all-pro linebacker of the Miami Dolphins. Offerdahl will not go to camp The Miami Dolphins, therefore, won't negotiate with him. They have said, John, come to camp, we'll give you $600,000, and we'll continue then to negotiate your 1989 contract. He refuses to do it. They refuse to negotiate. I think John Offerdahl is getting some bad advice from his agent. Now, unlike Lawrence Taylor, who plays every single down on defense, Offerdahl only plays on running situations.
I hope he's sensible and he's self-motivating, because he had better be in excellent physical condition. Unlike his teammate, Mark Clayton, who signed last week and played, Mark didn't get hit on every play. When John lines up at linebacker, those 280-pound offensive linemen are going to try to tear his head off. He had better be in shape. Not like Johnny Hector, the running back for the Jets. He signed late, came in overweight, out of shape, and was virtually no use to the Jets.
Well, I have a way to solve that problem about getting the players and a team together. What they do is they should set a date certain in July where the team and player must reach agreement. If they don't reach agreement by that date, then the team can't use that player for the year. That'll put pressure on both parties.
I knew you'd have a way to solve all these problems. I know what it will do. It will get some Players Association people like Gene Upshaw very hot under the collar. And the only thing you want hot in the National Football League is the quarterback. And as you're going to see, they weren't only hot, but some of those quarterbacks last week were really sizzling.
After Week 1's debacle in Philadelphia, the Seahawks were looking for relief at home. Unfortunately for Seattle, the Kingdome was short on comfort and long on pain. And the pain came from a most unlikely source.
Hogeboom setting up to throw, looking, throws up the field. Green is open. He's got it at the 30. He's to the 20. Can't, looking back and taunting as it goes.
Hogeboom threw 4 touchdown passes, 3 of them to Roy Green.
Hogeboom on a quick snap, back to throw, setting up, throwing up the middle. It's complete to Green. He's got it at the 30. He's down to the 20. He's to the 10.
Hogeboom proved his worth as a starter, and Green proved that there's plenty of life in those old bones. Down in San Diego, Jim McMahon was hoping to work the kinks out of the Chargers' young attack. He found a smooth connection with wideout Anthony Miller, hooking up 7 times for 162 yards. On the day, McMahon completed 27 passes for 389 yards, both new career highs for the 8-year pro.
McMahon, quick drop, pump fakes left, is going to run. Now rolls to the right, looking for a receiver, throws to the back of the end zone, touchdown!
But it was an old Chargers problem which tipped the balance in the Oilers' favor. Chargers turned the ball over 5 times as the Oilers converted them to 24 points.
They give it. Alonzo Highsmith, strip ahead, pounds to the 10, to the 5, into the end zone. Touchdown, Houston Oilers. Moon and his offense carving up the Charger defense.
Houston's 34-27 win didn't come easily, though. Remember, this is the NFL, where only the hits are free. If this trio of Patriots defenders looks as though they're lost somewhere between Valley Forge and Massachusetts General, it was nothing compared to how the Patriots lost track of Miami defensive end Jeff Cross. Dan Marino, on the other hand, fired 3 touchdown passes, enabling him to reach 200 touchdown passes faster than any quarterback in NFL history, as the Dolphins upset the Patriots 24-10. Until Mouse Davis resurrected it in the USFL, the run-and-shoot offense was only a footnote in pro football history. But Davis hopes it's something whose time has come in the big time. Quarterback Bob Galliano's 344 yards passing is testimony to its ability to produce big numbers. But even a traditional pocket passer knows the only numbers which count are the ones in the one-lost column. Bill Sims threw 2 touchdowns with an old 5-step drop, closing the book on the Lions and capping a day where the old passers showed that nothing's passed them by. Coming up on Inside the NFL, the Bears dominate the Vikings and take control of the NFC Central. A Where Are They Now look at former Detroit running back Mel Farr. And on NFL Forum, 49er Ronnie Lott provides an inside view of his ex-coach Bill Walsh.
We'll see those features in just a few minutes. But Lenny, right now, I think we ought to talk a little bit about the Giants. You know, in the past, I was really comfortable that the defense of the Giants would be the one that would always come out and save the bacon for the offense. But somehow, this year, I don't have that same feeling.
Well, I know what you're talking about. That defense has changed. I don't think they really wanted to. They were forced into it. When you thought of the Giant defense in the past, you thought, besides Lawrence Taylor, Harry Carson, Jim Burt, George Martin, very strong leaders on that football team. They are no longer there, so they can't rely on that defense anymore. They have to rely on the offense carrying the load.
You know, I think the offense also changed by necessity. Number one, because the defense is not as formidable as it was in the past. And number two, when Joe Morris got hurt and broke his foot and he was out for the season, I think Bill Parcells said to himself, listen, I've got to have Phil Simms turn that notch up on that offense just a little bit. He has to take more risks and put more points on the board. Because if this team is going to get into the playoffs, then they better get comfortable and make this adjustment.
I'm happy to see this adjustment because now I think we're going to see just how good a quarterback Phil Simms really is. There were some outstanding offensive performances last week. A lot of points were scored, but hey, the defense showed up in some of those ball games too. They were responsible for some victories, as we will see in the segment coming up. And you may be surprised, one of those defenses happens to belong to the Denver Broncos.
Buffalo fans have gotten used to relentless defense lately, and on Monday night they got plenty of it from the Broncos.
And a tackle in the end zone for a safety. I think it's Michael Brooks.
Belittled in recent years for its undersized defense, the Broncos came up with a big play, forcing 3 sacks and 3 interceptions against the zipless Bills.
Continues the count. Again wants that quick throw, and this time it's intercepted Braxton. 40, 30, tackled and pulled out of bounds by Kennebrew.
Bills fans were looking for a win to quench their thirst after a ban on beer in Rich Stadium. But on this night, it was the Broncos who drank from the loving cup.
The running back, Johnson in motion. Elway rolls left on first down, throws it is complete, and Vance Johnson will score the touchdown.
And when Buffalo's first Monday night party since 1984 was over, it was the Bills who had to swallow a 28-14 defeat. Limber up well before taking on the Chicago Bears, because if you're the least bit tight, they'll bend and break you. Minnesota exercised poor judgment running against Chicago. But when Wade Wilson went to the air, the results were even more grisly for the Vikes.
Wade Wilson still at the controls. Here's the snap. Rushes on. Wilson in the pocket. He's the left side.
The Bears picked off 4 passes en route to 28 fourth-quarter points, and Neil Anderson scored a trio of touchdowns to pace the rout. Chicago finds itself in a familiar position after just 2 weeks, alone atop the NFC Central. In an unfamiliar position Sunday was the Chiefs' new mascot, KC the Wolf. But while the friendly KC was rallying his pack, the big bad Raiders were ready to blow the Chiefs' house down.
Raider
four-man front. Direct snap on the shotgun. Way down the field, a long pass intended for Thomas, intercepted by McElroy. Here's the snap, crowd making a lot of noise. Here comes a blitz. Here's the throw to the end zone. Touchdown, Fernandez.
Fortunately for KC, another Chief made his home debut Sunday, AFC Defensive Player of the Week, Derek Thomas. Thomas's 2.5 sacks and Christian Okoye's first ever 2-touchdown game made a third KC debut, Coach Marty Schottenheimer's, a howling success, and made mascots all around stand up and take notice. What's this? Invaders in the jungle? An 0-2 start? Another Cincy scandal? Don't bet on it, Tiger. It's only the Pittsburgh Steelers. For the second week, Bubby's boys were buried, but Boomer and his Bengal bunch rebounded from a Week 1 loss to amass 520 total yards. Pittsburgh has given up 92 points in 2 games and scored 10. And if they continue their laughable play, opposing quarterbacks like Boomer will continue to sport silly grins.
Last year, Chuck Noll of the Pittsburgh Steelers was under fire, but he survived. This year, if he's going to survive, he has to improve. But the question is, how can you improve when 30 of your current players have 2 years or less experience? Well, we're going to find out more about the Chuck Noll situation on Inside Info. Len?
Nick, thank you very much. Gary Myers, football columnist for the New York Daily News, will be with us all year long. This is probably the last time I'll have to really introduce you, Gary. He was talking about Pittsburgh. The Steelers, last time they were in the playoffs, 1984. Since that time, they've won 26. They've lost 39. Does that mean that their head coach is in trouble?
I think Chuck Noll is in big trouble. Dan Rooney took the first step last year when he forced Noll to fire 4 of his assistants. They're 0-2. They've given up 92 points. They've been the worst team in the league the first 2 weeks of the season. I called Rooney this week looking for him to defend his coach. He said he'd answer any question about the NFL. He would answer no questions about the Steelers. He said anything he said would make him look bad, and he's just going to leave that topic alone. I think Noll will be golfing with Tom Landry some November Sunday pretty soon.
You think he's going to be gone then?
I really do.
Well, I know an impatient owner. His name is Al Davis. I was at the Kansas City Raider game, and I saw Al after the game. He did not look very happy. What's Shanahan's situation?
Well, he was sitting in the coach's booth Sunday, which is not unusual for Davis, except he was sitting in the first row, and he was doing more than observing. He was very active in the coaching of the game. I was out in training camp in Oxnard, California this summer, and I watched Davis go on the field, pulling defensive backs to the side and showing him how to play the bump and run. You would think with everything that's on Davis's mind, you know, the moving to Oakland, he's involved in the Commissioner Search Committee, he's involved in the New World League, that he'd be worrying about things other than his coach, but he's making life really miserable for Mike Shanahan. I think he should either fire him and take the guy out of his misery or just let him alone and let him coach.
Well, what do you think he will do?
I think by the end of the season, Shanahan will be another coach who's gone. Davis has been unhappy with his choice from the very beginning.
Randall Cunningham apparently should be very happy right now because he signed a new contract. Why did Philadelphia choose that particular time to do that?
Well, they wanted Cunningham to be happy. He no longer was the highest paid Eagle. Reggie White got that when he signed a $6 million contract. They also felt if they win the Super Bowl this year, and they fully intend to do that, they think they have an excellent team. I'm not so sure about that. That Randall will have better leverage next year. They think having the leverage he has now, where he's 75% of the offense, was about as far as they wanted to go. Plus, they're a little afraid of what happens with free agency down the road. They don't want to lose him. I think it's ridiculous. The guy hasn't won a playoff game yet. He's a great player, but he hasn't won a playoff game.
Evidently, you never played quarterback, Gary, because they're paying Troy Aikman a bunch of money. He's never won a game with them yet. What are some of the other stories that you've been following?
Well, there's a lot of talk among the owners about going to an 18-game regular season, reducing the preseason from 4 to 3 games, which will give them more television money, which will make the networks happy. The players will begin to renegotiate contracts, of course, if they increase 2 more games.
I don't know how they can pay him much more money. The guy that's making all the money right now is Tony Mandridge with Green Bay. How's he been doing?
Well, you'd think for $4.5 million, the guy would be playing the most important position on the offensive line, which is a quarterback you know is left tackle. He protects the quarterback from the blind side. But they moved Manders from left tackle to right tackle last week. He was not doing well in practice. Sunday he'll play for the first time against the Rams, being short yardage and goal line. But he's been a big disappointment so far.
What about this story with Otis Wilson with the Raiders kept firing him and then rehiring him.
Otis Wilson's going to announce his retirement next week. It's really a sad story. He hurt his knee playing for Chicago last year, and he signed as a Plan B free agent with the Raiders. He signed for $550,000. They cut him once, brought him back for $350,000, and he was starting. They cut him on the day he was with his wife at the hospital. She was giving birth to their third child. Shanahan tracked him down at the hospital.
Was it a boy or a girl?
It was a girl.
I wonder if it had been a boy, what would they have named it, Mike?
Probably not.
Gary, thank you very much for your information. Looking forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you.
Nick, let's go back to you.
Hold it, 1 minute. Did I hear you guys right? And they said that Otis Wilson got cut in the maternity ward?
Well, you know you cannot hide from the Turk, Nick.
Well, I'll tell you what, I hope he has a job outside of football. Because one of my great concerns is, are players prepared to live without a life of football? Well, in our Where Are They Now segment, we're going to take a look at a man who prepared early in his football life to live without football. He is Mel Farr, former running back of the Detroit Lions, who teaches us that hard work can certainly bring success.
The continuing adventures of Mel Farr, Superstar, fighting high prices to bring you a far better deal. Greenfield and 10 Mile.
Back in 1980, when I first started doing commercials on TV, and it was out of pure desperation. I mean, I was going bankrupt. Business went sour. I was selling Fords. We did not have any of the fuel-efficient automobiles that the consumer was looking for. Interest rates was at 22%, and I was a young black businessman in Oak Park, Michigan. It was very, very difficult.
Mel Farr was Detroit's #1 pick out of UCLA in 1967 and became Rookie of the Year. He was to take the Lions to that next step after years of mediocrity. He was big, strong, fast, and had the gritty determination to succeed regardless. He played with pain. Injured throughout his short yet successful career, he played the game like he lived his life, always prepared.
I had an injury in my second year in the NFL, and it was a knee operation. And I wondered, I said, you know, if that would have been my last day on the football field, what would I do to take care of my wife and my family? So I went out and I got me a job at Ford Motor Company on crutches and decided that I wanted to learn something other than how to play football.
By setting goals and objectives then, Mel Farr today has capitalized on his football name in the Detroit area by owning 3 full-service automobile dealerships and employing over 300 people.
I spend a lot of time teaching and developing my personnel. My job as an ultimate manager is to get more out of them than they think they have to give. They're going to hate me for it initially, but in the end, they're going to love me for it. It's a team effort. So if my people are better, I have a priceless advantage over my competition.
Though business success and future growth consume Mel's life, he always finds the time, as he did during his career, to help the community that has supported him for 22 years.
I think going back into the community and to see those little smiling, pretty faces out there, you can't help but your heart go out, and because you know they're facing a big, strong uphill battle.
There's also an economic battle that Detroit is tackling, and Mel has reaped its reward. But it is his private life that he cherishes most. A family man with 2 sons, both All-Americans from UCLA, and 1 daughter. Mel has said he's built half his home from football and the other half from Mel Farr Ford. Though he never had the opportunity to display his football talents to their full potential, Mel can now show the world his full potential in business.
I'm an ex-athlete who's done fairly well after he's left the game, especially being a black athlete that most people think that all we can do is run up and down the football field and score touchdowns and sack quarterbacks, but given the opportunity, I think we can become pretty decent business.